Welcome back to the Saints and Alumni Show right here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. I'm your host this week, Brandon Murphy, class of 2017, Associate Director of Alumni Engagement. And this week I'm joined by women's basketball head coach Jim Jabir. Today we're talking about all things Siena basketball from the preseason, an outlook on the upcoming Saints schedule, and of course homecoming and the return of the Albany Cup. A reminder to everyone listening today that there's a few ways to subscribe to the Saints and Alumni Show podcast on WVCR 88.3 The Saint, Apple and Spotify, iHeartRadio, and of course you guys can go to the Siena Alumni YouTube channel and check out the complete selection of shows. Coach Jabir returned as the women's basketball head coach for the 21-22 season after his first stint with the program between 1987 and 1990. A finalist for the 2013 Naismith National Coach of the Year, he enters his 35th season at the helm of a college basketball program. Coach, we'll kind of get into a little bit of the history of you, some of the accolades, and some detail about your team. But first, welcome to the show today. I believe it's the first time we've had you on. How are things going today at Siena?
Well, first, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me. Things are great at Siena. It's the happiest place for me to be. I love it here. And it feels like I belong here, and I'm really comfortable, and we're building something. And I love coming to work every day.
I'm the same way with you, Coach. I graduated in 2017. I left. I actually went abroad for a little bit. Then I was teaching, and then I came back home to Siena in 2019. And, there's really no better place to be. And a lot has changed through the years, and we have a lot of history buffs that tune into the show every other week. And we always try to give the audience listening today a little bit of a glimpse about what life was like back when each one of our guests were here at Siena. So for you in the late 80s and now here in 2022. So I want to kind of rewind the clocks just a little bit and take them back to the 80s. You began your coaching career at Division III Buffalo State, but it wasn't until athletic director and men's coach Bill Kirsch, class of 56, gave you a phone call and said, hey, want to come coach Division I basketball at Siena in the spring of 1987. Can you kind of tell the audience a little bit about how that process began? Were you expecting that phone call? And how did you end up here at Siena in the 80s for your first stint?
Yeah, well, we took the Buff State team to the NCAA tournament. And I had taken the job as the head coach at Buffalo State so that the head coach that I worked for at Buffalo State could work on her PhD. So she kind of gave me her team. And she was a classmate of Joyce Legere, who was the senior women's administrator here. And Joyce and her were friends, classmates. And they kind of talked about me. And I think that's when Bill got involved. And that's how that all happened. But very fortuitous.
And you talk about some of those different types of connections that you had, that other people had with Siena. And those connections stay strong. Last year we had a sneak peek preview on Zoom with the alumni office and the men's and women's teams. You had some of your former players from the 80s sing your happy birthday. And it's so obvious how strong that connection is. And you've had great success in recruiting, not just talent like Val Higgins, Michelle Collins, Peg Taylor, but also that talent that builds a special bond and a unit that is cohesive. So specifically in the 80s, though, can you kind of go back about the landscape of women's college basketball, what the recruiting process was like, some of those programs that you were kind of competing to get some of that top talent like Val, Michelle, and Peg?
Yeah. Well, in the 80s, when I got here, I promised them I could do this and I could do that. And then they gave me the job and I walked into the ticket office, which was my office at the time. I closed the door and I panicked because, I hadn't been a Division I head coach before. So my learning curve was really, really sharp, and I had to pick up a lot of stuff quickly. So, in the 80s, you didn't have as much of the talent that you have now. You had great players, but there's so much more parity and there's so many more kids playing now. But we were able to stay fairly local, going as far as Long Island for Liz Lops and, the Fuchs sisters and, people like that, Maggie. People, we were very fortunate because we were able to find really good kids that really, really helped us. And Maggie Ward was from Massachusetts. So, I mean, we could stay locally and keep the talent level high. And they were all really good people from really good families. And that's really important as well.
We're going to get into it a little bit in the second segment today, but same thing, still recruiting a lot of great local talent and a lot of, young freshmen on the team as well with a lot of great energy and skill set. So back in the 80s, though, too, what was it like on campus? Were your games played on campus? Was it the MAC back in the day? What was that kind of landscape for Siena basketball?
Yeah, well, when I got the job, we were independent. And I think it was my last year here where we joined the MAC. And that was a great thrill. We always played our games here. And actually, the men played here as well. So I was here with Coach Dean, and when I had left to go to Marquette, Mike followed the year after. So we were really close, and he taught me a lot about the game as well. I spent a lot of time with him and his staff. But yeah, I mean, the men's games, it was crazy. Every seat was taken, and Mark Brown would catch an outlet pass and everybody stood up, and because they knew something amazing was going to happen. And it was a great time to be at Siena. I mean, there was this great family community. The men's and women's staffs were close, and just, I mean, this was a hopping place. I mean, you couldn't buy a ticket at the Arc, is what we called it then. You couldn't buy a ticket, so it was awesome.
A lot of my bosses in alumni engagement and in development went to school at Siena in the 80s and 90s. So every time this time of year, we always talk about what life was like in the 80s and 90s and the basketball teams. And they have the same comments about the energy, the community, and the lifestyle at Siena. And, also a few years back, you secured your 500th win as a head coach at a Division I basketball program, a feat not even 100 coaches have achieved. So I know a lot of people might be wondering today that are listening, what do you attribute some of that success to? And did you have any mentors and any influential people along the way that you kind of took pieces of advice from every now and then?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, you got to be lucky, and you got to be old to make it to 500 wins. But you surround yourself with good people, and you take good jobs, because there are some jobs that aren't really very good, and you're not going to win. And Siena was one of those really good jobs. It's a basketball centric place, and they cared about women's basketball, and it gave me an opportunity to be successful. Like I said earlier, Mike Dean and Danny Thies and Tim Capstraw, the men's staff at the time, they were super influential in my development. I mean, I literally would go to their practice, watch everything I could, sit in on our staff meetings. Mike would take me up to the cafeteria and feed me, because I made about $13,000 a year. And then I'd watch their practice, and then we'd practice. And so everything I still do today, I do a lot of drills that Mike taught me. And I talked to him last week. He's still kind of sounding, like a coach. And I'm grateful. He's a great mentor.
You talk about going to practice and taking notes. So, I'm thinking to myself, one of my favorite movies of all time is the movie Miracle on Ice, about the USA hockey team. And they were watching film about their opponents. So what was it like back in the 80s, too, when you're going to practice and you're trying to scout teams? What was getting, player notes like? And what was it like to kind of put together a game plan in the 80s that's different than what it's like nowadays?
Well, now it's a lot easier. I think the kids saw the same thing, except it took a lot longer to make the film and create the material that they really, really need. You had VHS, and I mean, it was a mess. But we still had scouting reports, which are fairly consistent and pretty much the same. But it just took a lot more time to do. And back then you could live scout. So, you jump in your car and, you drive down to Manhattan or, Iona or wherever, and you could watch and get calls and things like that. But I think this is a far better way to do it the way we do now.
And so you had the coaching job in Siena in 1987. You left for Marquette in 1990. And before coming back to Siena in 2021, stops along the way at Providence, Dayton, Florida Atlantic, where you still had tremendous success along the way. So you talk about some of those influential people that you've used some advice from along the way. But there's also got to be a great coaching philosophy and a mindset within your team that you try to instill within them. So what is the coaching philosophy that you kind of go about and how you go about building your program?
Well, when I was at Providence, we struggled. It was the Big East when the Big East was a beast. I mean, it was Notre Dame, Miami, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Boston College, and Rutgers. Excuse me. And we were really poorly resourced at that time. I think it's a much better job now. But I was just surviving, and so I was recruiting kids I really didn't like. I didn't like being around, and I gave up a lot of my values, and I come to understand that the quality of character of the people is more important than their skill set, and so I made a decision when I got a head coaching opportunity again at Dayton that I was going to bring in people I really liked. I mean, kids I wanted to be around, and the whole idea of family, which is a huge cliche, but it's something that we've really adopted and really have tailored into our program. But family is everything. If I can't trust you, then I can't. I can't have you on the court. I mean, so Ernie Johnson, the guy that's on TNT with NBA,
Yep.
he gave a speech to the Alabama football team. And in the speech, he talked about loving your teammates. And he talked about a lot of things, but it really hit me hard. And it became something that we utilize all the time for how we want to run our program and run our lives. So we talk about loving each other. We talk about trusting each other. We're talking about helping each other become better every day. Like when you wake up in the morning, like, how can I make your day better? How can I be a servant to you? And in that way, that resonates with quality basketball. I mean, if you're unselfish, if you're hardworking, if you're trying to make the other guy's life easier, better, then you're going to be successful. And so for me, that's more important than what plays we run or what kind of defense we run. And so that's what we're building now. We're building this community where people really, really try to strive to make each other's days better and love each other, which it sounds so corny, but when you break it down, anything that's meaningful, there's an element of love in it, an element of compassion and trust. And the more you love somebody, the more you trust them, and the easier it is to succeed.
And you talked about that a little bit at the sneak preview event last month for the season ticket holders about how close this team is. And we're going to get to that in the second segment, the upcoming season and the roster for 2022-2023. So stay with us. We'll be right back here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. Welcome back to the Saints and Alumni Show right here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. I'm your host this week, Brandon Murphy, class of 2017, Associate Director of Alumni Engagement. And this week I am joined by women's basketball head coach, Coach Jim Jabir. And today we're talking about all things Siena basketball, from the preseason, outlook on the upcoming schedule, and of course the return of the Albany Cup. There's a tremendous amount of blood, sweat, and tears and time that goes into building a successful season. And that begins a lot during the off season and those preseason workouts and team bonding. So for you, Coach, and your team this year specifically, how have you guys utilized the off season, those summer months, to build a collective unit for the upcoming season ahead?
We've done a lot of stuff actually off the court. We've spent a lot of time talking. We've given them books to read that we've kind of studied and had conversations about. We've gone on hikes. We've taken them on trips, just trying to spend time together. A real valuable lesson I learned is every time I've taken a team to Europe, that we have a really successful year the following season. And I think it's because you have this intensive, short amount of time where you're really relying on each other and being there for each other, and you get to know each other in a different way. So we've kind of used that this summer and then followed that up throughout the course of the fall and up till now.
For me, up in the alumni engagement office, during those summer months, all the students are gone. I'm way up off campus, and there's not that many people around. But for you, your program's on campus. So when do those students leave? Do they come back in July and August? Then do they go back home and then come back in September?
Yeah.
What's kind of the policy for that?
Well, they'll take, after the school's over, they'll go home, and they'll go home for, a little while. We come back in June, and then we'll stay 8 weeks, and then they'll go home for 2 or 3 weeks and then come back in August. I think they need to get away from me because I don't think it's healthy to be around me all the time. You could ask my wife, she'll say that. So we need a little bit of a break, and it's a time just to kind of decompress, be with family, rejuvenate yourself, and then come back ready to go. So it's a good intense 8 weeks that we spend together, and I think it's a healthy balance.
And it's not just during the off season that you're together, you're building that collective unit, but it's during the season as well for the women's program. And your program is also heavily involved within the Capital Region community, from welcoming the youth to summer camps throughout the community, the Pink Zone game during the season for awareness for breast cancer. So can you share with the audience today a little bit about why being involved within your community is so important to your program and the development of your players, and maybe some of those programs that you're involved with throughout the Capital Region?
Sure. Yeah. So I feel there's a need for a place like Siena to do more with the underserved community in the Capital District. And we've started to do clinics where, they're on a weeknight and they're for little kids, and our team is there, our coaches are there, and we'll run them through drills and stuff for an hour and a half. And there's just, and it's free, and it's just, it grew. The last one had 90 kids at it. And so I think we need to be servants first. And so we're going to do, and we do a lot, out in the community. We go to elementary schools. We're out there doing a lot of things. And I think that's going to continue. We have to continue that. And our kids need to feel like they're leader servants, and they are leaders. They're role models, and they do a great job. Whenever we ask them to step up, it's not a chore for them. They really love it. And so for me, it's hard to find the balance because they have school, they have basketball, they lift, they have study hall, they have to eat right. I mean, there's a lot of things going on for them. And then to ask them to go off campus and they love to do it, but there's a balance. And so we have to find that balance every day and continue to grow our kids and grow the community and make sure that we're out there and that we're bringing people back to campus. I just think our kids are such great role models. Siena is such a great place. If we can bring the underprivileged, underserved youth here and show them alternatives and show them, a way to get an education and better yourself, then that's our mission. That's our priority. So we'll continue to do that as we go along and enhance it and develop it.
And I think that is, one of the main reasons that the fans really respect about your program. And it's always great to see on SienaSaints.com all of those articles that get published about what you're doing within the community. And then we put that in e-news, and our alumni and the fans of the program can see that almost every month, what you're being involved in. And, one of the other great things about, SienaSaints.com is when you guys put out those schedule releases, and I almost get more excited about the non-conference schedule than I do about the conference schedule. Because I know I'm going to see Iona, I'm going to see Marist, I'm going to see those MAC programs. But that non-conference schedule, It's always exciting, it's always competitive, and it's always something that our fans can look forward to. So for you in the women's program, what is kind of the mindset and the strategy behind putting together these non-conference schedules that always seem to be rock solid for your team?
Well, there's a philosophy behind it, and what we're trying to do is build a program first. So when you're recruiting, which is the essence of your program, I mean, your players make up your program. If you're going to be successful because you have really good players, and if you're struggling, it's the opposite. So um, to bring great players to the table, we have to have a winning product. So we'll schedule accordingly to get those wins. And now I feel like we've got some really talented young kids. So now the job is, how do we prepare them for the league? How do we prepare them for a championship and an NCAA tournament? So now the quality of your teams you play can be enhanced because now you want to challenge your kids in a different way. And we have a fairly competitive schedule. I think we play two A10 schools in Duquesne and Bonaventure. We play a really good Albany team. We play New Hampshire that beat us by 20 last year. So we have a very healthy schedule, and I'm looking forward to it.
And you talk about the success of the program is bringing in that type of talent and that talent to stay and to grow year by year. And you've done a great job with that. You've coached, future WNBA talent at Dayton. You've led teams to the Elite Eight. And this year at Siena is probably going to be no different. You've got a lot of great young talent that you talked about at the sneak preview event down at the MVP arena and what the potential of this team is going to be. So can you give a little insight about some of the players that are returning this year, some of the new players that you brought into the program, and what this unit is looking like for the upcoming season?
Sure, absolutely. I want to start off by talking about baby Jackson, Anisha. I'm so proud of her and really impressed with her growth and her development as a person first. And unlocking that door really opens up her game. She's playing at a whole nother level, shooting the ball really, really well, mature, happy, and I'm really proud of her. We've got also returning is Sabal, and I'm not even trying to say her name because every time I do, I screw it up. But it's Istanbul Uglo, and Sabal's our senior, our sole senior, and I think she can help us this year. We're hopeful that she can kind of put some things together, but she's working really hard, and we really appreciate the effort she's given us. And then we have a bunch of sophomores who, two of them are our captains. Anaja Brown is a captain, and Valencia is a captain, and V's our local guy, and both of those kids have been great leaders, and they're babies, and you put that with a couple of other sophomores for us. Amina has played really solidly, improved her game. Really, really good kid that she's helping the freshmen all the time. So there, she's been really big for us as well. And then, we have a couple of kids who are walking on the team who are upperclassmen who, Riley's a sophomore as well. Riley Carpenter comes from Shen, and then Simone Walker. Simone has been really, really hardworking kid, contributing in so many ways. And then we got a bunch of freshmen and just babies who are going to be good someday, but they just don't quite know what they know. So they're going to have to learn very, very quickly. But I'm excited about them because I think they've got the skill set to become really solid players and take us far. So, and we can talk about those guys if you want. Nikola Zvenkova, she's a kid from the Czech Republic. She's a 1-2 guard. Awesome kid. She blew out her ACL last month. And actually today she has surgery. So on that ACL, and she'll be back for 4 more years after that. Teresa Seppala is a kid from Finland who I think she'll probably start for us this year. And I think her potential is unlimited. She's strong and physical. she's a 20-year-old coming from a really great program in Finland. So she's physically mature, knows the game on another level. And I think she's going to be really helpful to us. London Gamble is a 5'8" point guard from Los Angeles, super athletic, high energy, kind of reminds me of Valencia. And she can just run for days. And she's, I think, going to be helpful as we go. And she's going to add to our depth. Savannah Wilson is a 6'1" post player from Texas, learning every day, getting better physically, imposing, but needs to learn the game. And I think she's working on that right now. Someone I'm really excited about is Angel Jones from Virginia. She's a 5'4" point guard who's strong and tough and quick and is learning every day and leaps and bounds and going to be a player for us. We took a walk-on by the name of Bridie McCann from Philly, who's got tremendous range on her shot and has just a great understanding and feel for the game. So she's made us better already. And then Elisa Mevius is a 5'10" point guard from Germany who, I can't say enough about. She's talk about feel for the game. She's got a tremendous feel. She's been coached by a friend of mine in Germany who's done an amazing job getting her ready. And I think people are going to really enjoy watching her play. Hannah Finnerty is a 6-foot shooting guard from St. She's down front in Queens. And for right now, she's from, wait, now it's going to bother me. She's from Senior McClancy. She's from McClancy, and I played in that league. I should know that. But shooter, going to get strong, and she's going to be a part of all this too. And then last but not least, Naya Coat Root is a kid from Alaska, 6-foot forward, who is transitioning into the basketball program and finding her way. So you put all those kids together. And it's just great energy, great passion. They're very coachable. And I just think it's a question of when, not if.
And we've got a fantastic season ahead. We've got about 30 seconds left in today's episode. So I'll leave it to you, Coach, just for one final thought to the fans of Siena basketball listening today.
Well, I think if you like good basketball, if you like watching good, clean, smooth basketball that's pretty to watch, I think, you might be disappointed initially the first couple of months, but I think you need to come now to appreciate the growth and the value that you'll see develop, because I think we're going to be really, really good. And my goal is to fill the UHY Center up, and that's the goal. And so if you love Siena, if you love basketball, then come out and watch it, because it's very different than the men, but it's very pretty. It's a beautiful game in another way. And I hope we can all appreciate that.
And to everyone listening today, make sure you go to sienasaints.com, check out the women's schedule, check to see when those home games are, those away games are, buy tickets. We look forward to seeing you at the UHY Center. Coach, thanks for coming on today for the Saints and Alumni Show. Thanks for everyone listening today. We'll see you next time right here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint.